Hey guys, in this video I'm going to talk about project management methodologies and the certification landscape. It's going to be very interesting. I'm going to answer some of the commonly asked questions surrounding the topics. I'm going to give you some practical tips and tricks and insights from my experience. And I'm also going to cover briefly the history of project management methodologies. Like I'm going to cover 100 years of development in about 5 minutes. And last but not least, I will give you tips to know when to use a waterfall and when to go for an agile methodology. So first thing I want you to know is that the metaphor that I use to teach this is the project management methodology is like a martial art and the certification is like the belt. In fact, some project management methodologies like Lean Six Sigma actually use the term belt for their certification programs. So I'm not the one who discovered this methodology, and I think it works very well because it communicates the main advantages of using a methodology. Now, strictly speaking, there is a difference between a methodology and framework, but I'm not going to go in that level of detail, so I will refer to all those martial arts as methodologies. So what is a methodology? The methodology consists of several key ingredients, and I'm going to cover them briefly in a moment now. But before we go there, think about what is the added value of a martial art. Imagine that I have to fight you, and imagine that we are roughly the same size and we are roughly the same, we have roughly the same fighting experience. Then we will have roughly the same chance for success, right? But imagine now that I am trained in a martial art methodology. I know a martial art, so my chances immediately go up. So one of the main advantages of the martial art is that it helps you increase your chances of success and survival. It also helps you deal with surprises, and it is exactly the same thing in the project management world. When you use the methodology, it gives you the chance to succeed because, as you know, a lot of the projects fail. In fact, there are some very gloomy statistics that say that majority of the projects fail, and this is because of their temporary one-off nature. So everything that you do once has a higher chance of failure, especially if you compare them to processes which are about perfection. Methodologies increase your chances of success, and in the project management world, they increase your chances of delivering a successful outcome of a project. At a certain point in your career, you will be faced with a dilemma: should you pursue a methodology or not? And of course, I think you know the right answer. If you're serious about it, you should pursue a methodology. So what are the advantages? In the project management world, it allows you to manage multiple projects in the same time because you're more efficient. Remember, in the previous videos, we talked about that there are many types of projects. What we didn't mention is that normally in a real life situation, you have more than one project. So this is very important. In a real life situation, you have to deal with more than one enemy. You have more than one project. And to be able to stay on top of your workload, you have to use some form of leverage. Once you increase the complexity and the numbers above certain threshold, the methodology is something that allows you to survive. What goes into a methodology? If I manage a project in a certain way, what are the things that must be in place for me to confidently say that I have applied a methodology to that project? In other words, what are the ingredients of a methodology? And I'm not going to be theoretical about it. I'm just going to give you the high-level things that must be in place before you confidently say that you use a methodology. First of all, you need to have some form of established life cycle. So all the projects that you manage must follow the same approach. In PMP, you have a life cycle which consists of initiation, planning, execution, monitoring and control, which is an ongoing cycle, and then closure. If you use another methodology, you will have a different life cycle. So the advantages of having a common life cycle allows to compare multiple projects. Imagine that you have 100 projects. If all of your project managers follow the same methodology, you can say to your higher management, 50% of the projects are at initiation, 25% are at execution. We have closed 3. And just because they follow the same phases, it allows for easier reporting. Another one is you have same roles and responsibilities. So methodologies normally come with predefined roles and responsibility. You have a sponsor, you have a project manager, you have a project team, and so on and so forth, which means that everybody on the team knows what they're supposed to do and they don't have to discover that on the fly during an actual project. Another ingredient of a methodology is the governance. So you have these people and these roles and they have to be managed. For example, what type of meetings do you have? At what level are those meetings? What is the purpose of each meeting? These are all essential parts of the governance, and some methodologies have prescription about what is the optimal governance for their projects. The other one is tools. Another ingredients are the tools. A lot of methodologies come with predefined tool sets. This is just like martial arts. So for example, if you practice certain martial arts, they come with the tool. If you are, for example, a ninja, you have to master specific tools that are specifically designed for that martial art. It's exactly the same thing with projects. A lot of the tools in projects are mental tools. They are not physical or maybe sometimes software tools. So for example, if you manage a waterfall projects, you will have to do a schedule, and the schedules are done through Gantt charts. And for example, Microsoft Project is a tool which you can use to create a Gantt chart, or you can use Smartsheet to track your action items, or you can use a template. I look at templates as tools as well because they're essentially micro tools that help you be more efficient and transparent. And maybe the last ingredient about a methodology is to cultivate the ability to tailor that. So methodologies are designed to be applicable for wide scope and for wider application, but on a specific project, you should be able to say which parts of the methodology you will use and which ones you will be more relaxed with. So if you follow a common life cycle, predefined roles, specific governance, specific tools, you have common terms. By the way, methodologies also encourage the use of common terms. So for example, when I say that a project is in red, we both should understand the same thing. If I say that we are at initiation phase, if we use the same methodology, you will know exactly what I mean when I say that. So it facilitates communication and transparency a lot. So if you have all those things in place, probably you are managing a project professionally through a methodology. Okay, so some of the questions that I get from the students over the years, some of the most frequent questions, I think the number one question is, I want to start in project management. What are the certificates? What is the first certificate that I should pursue? Right? Or what are the first methodology I need to adopt? I'm serious about project management. I want to get certified in a specific methodology. And my answer to this has always been the same. If you're starting out and if you have very low experience, my recommendation is start with Prince 2. And if you have like 2 years of experience, or even if you don't have experience, start with Prince 2. The only caveat to that is if you're in US, maybe this is not a very well-respected certification there, but pretty much anywhere else, especially UK, Europe, Prince 2 is a great start. Why? Because it is relatively easy to certify, it's relatively cheap, and basically you have to invest like 2 weeks of studying and maybe 1,000 euros or 1,200, 1,300 US dollars. That's it. The next certification should be Agile. I think you should have at least one waterfall and one Agile. And the best one in my mind is PSM1, which is from scrum.org. This is really cheap. I think it costs about $200 and it takes literally it can take you a few hours to prepare. It's just online exam. You can set it. You can take it anytime. Relatively easy to pass. The book is 14 pages. So it's very light, but those two certifications will give you a very balanced initial profile. You will have Prince 2, which is a great methodology, waterfall methodology, and one Agile. I think this is the optimal start. 2 or 3 years down the road, if you still want to work in projects, you should pursue PMP, because PMP is probably the most recognized certification when it comes to project management. I do not recommend CAPM, which is the lower grade of PMP, because you're going to study for PMP and get the lower quality certification. So go for PMP directly if you're serious about project management. Here is why I don't recommend PMP as a first certificate. I mean, you can certainly attack PMP starting out in the career, but first of all, there are experience requirements for PMP. You need to prove formal project management experience of several years before you are allowed to take the exam. So if you don't have that, you cannot attack it. But even if you have the experience, PMP is a very difficult exam. It requires a lot of preparation, probably 6 months. My advice is before you attack PMP, make sure that you will stick around as a project manager, because the time investment is huge. If you know that this is your thing and you are going to be a project manager pretty much for the rest of your career, definitely go for PMP. All right. Then the other questions that I get is, how many certificates should I have, and how many certificates are actually too many? And here is my advice on this one. First of all, I believe that you should be certified. Having no certificate after a certain stage in your career does not look good. So you need to have some certificates. And then on the other extreme, there are people who are overly certified. They have like PMP, PGMP, PFMP, and then 5 or 6 other project management certificates. And their profile looks a little bit creepy. So I think you have to maintain a balance between the number of years you have been in the industry and the caliber and the number of certificates that you have. So for example, if you're more of the academic type, I would say 1 certificate every 2 to 3 years. If you're more of a practical guy, if you're more like anti-academic guy, you should have 1 certificate every 5 years for your experience. But I've seen people who are like 1 year in a formal project management role and they have 10 certificates. That's fake. That's overly academic. It comes across dodgy and creepy to me. The other key question that I really want to nail down, and I get very emotional when I talk about this, is, do I need a certificate at all? And I told you already, yes, you do need. And now I'm going to give you a story, right? There are some lazy people, lazy practitioners who have been project managers for, let's say, 10 years or 5 years, and they are not certified. There was one particular guy that I remember. I was recruiting a project manager for one of my teams, and he showed up. He had like 5 years of project management experience in a well-known software development company. I noticed in his CV that he didn't have any certificates. He was giving good answers, and then in the course of the interview, I asked him, so you've been in the industry for 5 years. Why do you do project management? And he said, because I'm passionate about projects. And I said, well, but I don't see any certifications. Can you explain to me what is happening on the certification front? And he said, well, I don't believe in certifications. For example, all my friends and colleagues have PMP. And with my discussions with them, they have said that nothing that is written in the book can be applied in real life. It's basically useless certification. It's difficult to obtain, and real life, basically I focus on delivering projects in real life. I don't like theory. I said, okay, but PMP is the leading certification in the world on project management, so maybe there is something to it that you're missing. He said, yeah, but I have read the book and I am following PMP. It's just that I'm not certified. To which I said, okay, can I ask you some questions from the book then? Can I just test your knowledge, your PMP knowledge? He said, yeah, go ahead, shoot. And I said, okay, walk me through the process of managing risks. And if you are PMP certified, you know that this is chapter 11 from PIM Book 5. So this is a whole chapter on risk management. If you are a project manager, one of your professional responsibilities is to ensure that you deliver the outcome of the project and de-risking the project, basically increasing the chances of success by managing risks. So it's a core knowledge area. And I said, walk me through the way you manage risks on your project. And he said, I don't recall what I've read in the book. So basically he didn't have an answer. And I said, well, this is exactly why you need certifications, because if you are certified now, your answer would have been risk management consists of seven processes. It's how to plan, how you plan your risk management, how you identify risks, how you perform qualitative and quantitative risk analysis, how you plan risk responses, how you implement those risk responses, and how you monitor for risks. And this is just, just a high-level summary of the entire chapter. But it gives you a very solid and very robust framework to de-risk a project. And if you have not read the book and if you're not certified, you don't have access to that. Now, in real life, do I follow all those steps? No, I don't. Depending on the complexity of the project and the current situation that I'm in, I can decide to deviate. And basically I can say, I'm going to deviate from the methodology. For this particular project, it doesn't make sense to manage risks. But I'm deviating from something that I know versus I cannot deviate from something that I don't know. So what I'm saying is certifications make a lot of sense and they are useful. Once you advance above certain level in your career, you have to get certified. You have to read the books. There is no way around that. You cannot remain lazy until the end of your life and your career because this is going to decrease your employment value. That being said, I know a lot of certified project managers, PMP guys, PMP material, who are very, well, I wouldn't use the word bad, but they're very poor project managers. Like they cannot manage projects properly. So just because you're certified, it does not make you a good project manager. But if you're a good project manager, it's kind of a hygiene factor. You have to be certified. You have to know your story. You have to know your theory. You have to read the books. It shows commitment. It shows passion. It shows that what you say and what you do is aligned. So now I want to spend a little bit of time covering briefly the history of project management. So first of all, you need to know that project management is not a standalone discipline. It's part of a larger body of knowledge, which is called general management. And many people don't know that, and many people think that project management is just a standalone science on its own. That's not the case, right? So you have this general body of knowledge called general management. If you come from business studies, you will have studied that at the university. If you're coming from a different background, here's a homework for you. Go to Wikipedia and Google Henry Fayol, who is considered to be the father of modern general management. That's a very big body of knowledge. Part of that body of knowledge, one branch of it is project management. Another branch of that body of knowledge is process management. Yet another branch is product management. And you should always remember that any good book on general management is going to help you understand project management better. Don't treat project management in isolation. It's a part of a larger body of knowledge. If you want to go deep, you have to trace back the knowledge through the ages, and you have to read the big books just to have solid foundation. But this is totally outside the scope. I'm just mentioning the name Henry Fayol, the father of general management. Research the guy and check his definition on general management, and you will see that the definition of general management is very similar to the one of